Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michaeldseville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
What is going on? What is going on? Shout out everybody. Welcome to the Community Beacon. It's 6:30 every Friday night. Appreciate each and every one of you guys for checking in each and every Friday night. If you're following us right now, guys, give us a like, comment, share, and subscribe for anyone who you think would love to take a look at this content, guys. Appreciate you, like I said, each and every night for checking out. Let's get some housekeeping in order. Like I said before, feel free to engage, comment, like, share, subscribe for anyone who's looking to be a part of this episode. I didn't even introduce yourself. I'm Mike Seville.
Yes, sir. It's the real estate king in the business, Michael inside the house.
I'm Mike. I just remembered. I'm Mike Seville. You know what it is? It's the sun. That sun has been beating me up all day. That heat has been beating me up. Got to remember to stay hydrated. I love the sun, but man, it takes a toll sometimes. And shout out to the co-host with the most, Mr. Joe Simmons.
I like that. I like that, Mr. Joe Simmons.
Sir, Mr. Joe Simmons,
That's
sir.
Right.
I have to learn to respect my elders. I'm working on
That's
it.
Right.
Please,
That's right.
please.
Respect your elders, Michaeldseville. Listen, son, you'll be all right.
Please forgive me.
Oh man, the great Michaeldseville was caught.
Forgive me.
Just
Please
for a
forgive
moment.
me.
He didn't have a word to say.
Children, young people are supposed to be seen and not heard. When I'm around wise people, older and wise people, I try to keep my mouth shut. I don't know.
I tell you what, you're pretty wise yourself.
They've forgotten more than I've learned, so I'm trying to keep it humble here, guys. So I appreciate it. Like I said, the co-host with the most, the motivatorpreneur, Mr. Joel Simmons from the Tenacity Foundation. We're gonna have a good time tonight, whether you guys want to have it or not. We are going to have a good time, brothers, sisters. Let's have a great time. It's Friday night, and I'm feeling right. The party's there on the dance floor. This is how we do it.
What generation is that song from?
This is how we do it. You know Montel Williams or Jordan. That definitely was around your time. You got his hat on. Anyways, guys, it's Monday nights, guys. Let me get serious for a little bit as I get this housekeeping together. Monday nights. What is my show on Monday nights called? I don't know.
What It Takes.
What It Takes. What It Takes, or motivational mics, whatever you want to call it. It says What It Takes down here. People, jump in. I'm giving some free business classes right now. If you have a business, maybe you're in the office and you want to see how you can take your company to the next level. Some new ideas, understanding metrics, understanding sales, understanding marketing and branding. I'm going through it for the last, I guess, 3-4 weeks, and we got about 3 to 4 more weeks of it. So please, guys, check us out. On Wednesdays, don't you guys forget, it starts with who? It starts with me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It starts with me.
Yeah, who you got this Wednesday?
This Wednesday, we have Emily Crookton. Emily Crookton. She is a sweetheart. Emily Crookton, she is absolutely amazing. You all are going to love what she brings to the table. She is the creator of the PhD, the Pocket PhD. She's a ghostwriter, and she loves it, and she does an excellent job with it. So you're going to love her. Please show on up 12:30. Be there. Be square.
Or be square.
No. You need to be square. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I thought you was doing the L7 thing. So so that's Wednesdays, and of course we culminate on Fridays with Community Beacon, guys. We love to have you. The last what is it 3 weeks, we decided to turn Father's Day into Father's Month. All the fathers are, I'm humbled. I'm humbled, and I'm happy to know a lot of great fathers who are in their children's lives. Some children's aren't theirs, and they're in those guys' lives as well as a father figure, role model, because it's important. There's definitely a balance, and you have the mother, you have the father, you have the nurture, you have the structure. It's a beautiful thing when it comes together, or when people make it happen. So all this month we've been celebrating the fathers. Tonight, of course, we are going to get into the recap of the month and some things that we learned during the month, because this was I think for everyone. And I know I'm speaking for myself, and of course, Joel and I talk outside of Community Beacon. Thank God he fits me into his busy schedule. Um, and so
What an
when
interesting night this is gonna
I
be.
get a chance. I get a first. I get a text, or I get a communication from one of his assistants, and they ask me. They say, "Hey, Joe's gonna be available. He has this. He has this window to fit you in." And I say, "Man, fit me in," because I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to talk to the brother until Community Beacon. So I appreciate the time that he takes when he does to have the time to take with me. I do
You're welcome.
appreciate it. I
It's my
appreciate it. So
pleasure. You're a
yes,
very
sir.
important person.
Yes, sir. And so we've been going through it. We got some interesting insights, I'm sure, that we're going to bring to the table. Father's Day. Matter of fact, happy Father's Day. How was your Father's Day?
Hey, so listen,
Or
Father's Day
weekend or
weekend was
hmm
really, really, really nice. I enjoyed it. I actually ended up taking like the 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. It was something else because I was supposed to work on Sunday. And one of the guys who had taken a vacation and I ended up having his time to work, he got an overtime spot on Saturday and turned his Sunday back in, and it released me. It sent me home. So I was glad, man. I mean, on Saturday, we there was getting home, so I was exhausted from running 48 hours. I was exhausted, but when I got it together and everything, we went out to the lagoon. What is that park called? It's up there in like Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Man, it was
I know
nice.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? I
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
come.
Ruined some really nice Jordans are going to that lagoon.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I didn't know. They were told we parked, and I know how you have to go back, and I didn't know you had to actually walk through the water to get to the beach. And I said, okay, well maybe it isn't too deep, but there's certain parts that it can't. And I had some nice pair of Jordans at the time, and like I said, needless to say, they were ruined. Toting stuff
Ruined.
back, ruined. They were, bringing stuff. We had a barbecue out there years ago. It was nice though. I know exactly the park you're referring to.
Yeah, it was really a nice time, man. We went up there. I think it was Du Bois
Yeah, yeah.
Park.
Was it crowded?
It was just right. There was enough
Okay.
people out there. Wasn't too much. So it was nice to be out there. And then the very next day, we had church service. And we went out to the church service and enjoyed the church service. I want to say that I spoke. I think that I spoke that
Oh
morning
man,
too, brother.
it's good when you don't remember.
Man, it was either that week or the week before, so I'm unsure about it. I know that I recently spoke, but I think that was the day that I spoke. And anyway, we had a great time, and then afterwards, I think we just went out to eat. We gathered
Yeah.
some food at the house.
Way to
It was
celebrate,
nice.
man.
Spend
I
time. What
love
about
it.
you?
I love it. My weekend was nice. I had time with Paul on Saturday, time with Paul and Elijah on Saturday. That was fun. Sunday, I volunteered myself to do some yard work. So I went over. It was me, my brother, and my father, and we did a lot of yard work. I mean, we chopped down a huge tree, had an enjoyable time. had, just even though we just to be, those generations being around, we don't get together too much, at the same time. So, and we're all fathers, so that was fun. Came back and had a very quiet Father's Day. I like peace. I like peace on Father's Day. I like nothing. I shouldn't even volunteer myself to do the yard work. I'm glad I did though. I felt good afterwards. And so after that, just kind of took it on in, got lots of presents, lots of people giving me calls. Shouts out to everyone who calls, shouts out to everyone who sent stuff. Shouts out to people who I didn't even know some of the people that I've done things in their lives, and they wanted to reach out to me, that in their kids' lives, and that was powerful as well. So man, I appreciate each and every one of you for remembering the Father's Day. Although we are turning into a month. Next year it's going to be official. I'm gonna make it as official as Juneteenth on a Monday. On Monday, I think Father's Day should definitely be celebrated for the month. And you said you had a word. What was the word about? Anything that resonated with you in regards to the word?
Actually, a lot of what we had been discussing, went down the whole pathway of recovering from stress, and depression. And so that's what made it really, really powerful, because it was really about, uplifting the people and giving them the understanding that once you understand what season you're in, you can overcome anything. You just got to know the season. Sometimes you're in the middle of this, in the middle of a storm, and you're steadily trying to work. Well, maybe it's time for you. If there was a huge storm, like in Florida, a hurricane coming, it's blowing and blowing and blowing, you would know that it's time for you to batten down the hatches, get inside the house and protect yourself, because you've seen what a storm like a hurricane can do. Right? You see it twist trees. You see floodwaters come in. You see things flying across the airways. You understand those things, just like people in Tornado Alley. They know it's time to get into the basement. When we go through storms inside of our life, sometimes the thing that we do is the exact opposite of battening down the hatches, and taking time for prayer and taking time for meditation and being grateful. We should be doing that in that point in time. But what we end up doing is we try to push against the storm as if we're bigger than it.
Man, brother, I love the consciousness that you're on. 1,000%. Isn't that something when you break it down like that? And what is it? Solomon talks about the seasons, right? There's a season for war. There's a season for peace. Like everything has its seasons. Here's the thing: is that we start to put our own experiences and judgments on these different seasons. We call these seasons right or wrong. Well, how is winter wrong? Right? How is hurricane season wrong? How is the dry season when the fire has to clear up all that brush naturally when nature is doing it? How is that wrong? We're putting the judgments on seasons that have to happen, that need to happen in order for expansion. Man, I felt a word earlier today, and the word just came to me was this expansion. And sometimes you need to kind of restrict, because guess what? To prepare for this expansion. Because it's something oftentimes, look at the people who win the lotto, and then we hear all these crazy stories about people who won the lotto. They got all this money at one time. Some superstars, NFL players, get a bunch of money. We're used to having nothing. Then they had a bunch of money and they just don't know what to do with it. They don't understand it because not taking time in these different seasons. Now, let's get on to the fatherhood, and we can transition on that. Is that fathers, what season are you in?
Yes.
That might have been the question for the show. Like, yes. What season are you in? Go ahead, brother.
No, I think that you set that thing up really perfectly, because in the essence of this being a recap, it means every single thing that we've been discussing throughout the entire month. Your legacy, in developing your legacy, in going through your stresses, and understanding your rights and creating relationships. Understanding your season speaks volumes. And the scripture that Mike was talking about was Ecclesiastes chapter 3, to everything. There is a season to every purpose under the heaven. This is powerful. A time to every purpose underneath the heaven. So that means, and I love this scripture, Romans 8:28. I think they actually made a TV series based off of that one scripture, a portion of that scripture, Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. And they used that and they ran an entire program on it. And it's just so powerful because if there is a season, if there is a season for everything and a time to every purpose, then that means that whatever I'm going through is meant to be. I need to learn from whatever that is. So asking that question, fathers, what season are you in? It's like, hey, man, slow down for a moment. Is it time for you to work, or is it time for you to meditate? Is it time for you to study, or is it time for you to speak and take action? When you learn what time it is, then you can increase exponentially your expansion. Like Mike, what you're talking about, your expansion will grow phenomenally because it's time for you to grow and you're doing the appropriate things for growth.
Brothers, to add on top of that is the lesson of patience.
Ooh.
I don't think there's anything more powerful than a patient person. Beware of the patient person, the person who can wait. And patience isn't just about waiting. It's about how you go. Well, not the patience. Having good patience is about the way that you go through it. Like, have good patience. This thing, what's the saying? Rome was not built in a day, right? So it's just to have the patience, and while you're going through that patience, really dig in and say, hey, what am I supposed to learn from it? What am I supposed to learn from this time, from this moment in time? And I'm gonna tell you what, a lot of us are looking to get there. If you enjoy the process of getting to there, when you get there, you're going to understand that oftentimes it's only a moment of elation, and then there's like another there, right? So so we should really start thinking about, as we get there, enjoy it, because once you get there, it's there. Then you're going to figure out someplace else to go, because there, as long as we're living, we should continuously be growing, and we should continuously be moving towards different things. There was a commercial, and I remember someone, I think Eric, it was and I think Eric Thomas told a story about Emmitt Smith, and they said Emmitt Smith was in the weight room, and this is when he was, Dallas, back in the day, for you Dallas Cowboy fans, back in the days when you guys were America's team. He was in the weight room and he was lifting. It was like boom, 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 hitting it, hitting, I don't know, 225, just hitting it. And then he stopped because they kept saying, aren't you going to rest? And he stopped for a second. And he just started hitting it again. Boom, boom. That's where the championship is made, right? It's made in the process of it. By the time you get to the season, you already in motion. And that's what's going to happen to you guys. By the time the opportunity happens, you got to be ready to strike while the iron's hot. You got to be ready to go, right? Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. We got to be ready to go. Let me see what Anna wrote. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. Like Anna said, fathers really get underappreciated a lot. For some reason, this message keeps repeating in my mind. If you don't appreciate yourself, you will never get appreciated. You really do need to love yourself first. You know what? And this is the perfect season for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was speaking with someone the other day, and I was like, one thing that you could do for yourself right now is you could just take your own hand and just.
Yep.
Because the thing about it is, many of us, what we end up doing is we end up tearing ourselves down. I mean, how many times do human beings pay the price for the exact same thing? We even created a law called double jeopardy, where it's against the law to try somebody for the exact same crime. But isn't it a crime to try yourself for the exact same thing for the rest of your life? You make one mistake and every single day you're going to pay for it. Animals don't even do that. And they're supposed to be inferior to us. They learn from it. If a bobcat falls inside of a hole, he walks around it next time. You know what I'm saying? The thing is like we have to be able to grow and be groomed into that way. And I think that what you were talking about right there and lifting weights, I recall still this, it's ingrained in my mind thinking about Kobe Bryant and one of the interviews that he had and just how he looked at failure as being a non-thing. In his mind, failure was not even true. It's not even something you should even speak about. It's just lessons to be learned. It's just ways to get better. It's a mindset thing. And sometimes the thing that's happening is that we're so focused on what we've done wrong and how we messed up this and how we messed up that, that we're unable to see the building for the sake of the city. You know, we lose our focus. So I love the example that you're giving because the preparation time is what needs to occur. The mindset setting time. You know, fathers, I don't know what season of life you're in, but if you're going to be ready for whatever it is that's coming, you got to start prepping. And there's little clues that life will give us, little cues that life will give us. And if we pay attention to the signs of the time, then we can start to learn about those things that are happening so that when the season comes, that it's time for us to weather a storm, or it's time for us to grow, or it's time for us to plant, that we have all we need to do the job.
You got, we might need to cut the show off. We gotta have the tool. You gotta have the tools to do the job. You can't just go through life with one tool, the hammer, and you're not prepared. You know, maybe that's why they play the tool commercials during during Father's Day. Is that why they do it? Listen, you know what I noticed, and here's the thing too. And I was listening to a message on Sunday. And I was listening to a pastor. Matter of fact, I didn't even watch it on the day of. I watched bits and pieces of it. I went back and watched it in one morning, and I said, you know, because when I was watching it during Father's Day, you know how we feel on Father's Day, like that's our day. So we just want we want to be catered to on our day. But the message that was given to me was kind of like it was like you got to get to work, fathers. And I'm like, man, come on, man. On Father's Day, you know what I mean? Like, you got to get to work on Father's Day. Like, why that message? I wasn't open to listening to it on that Sunday. But then when I listened to it, sometime during the week, it might have been Wednesday or Thursday. I remember before I was going to the gym, I was doing some cardio. I said, well, let me put this message on and take a listen to it. And I listened to it and I said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. It is on Father's Day. It is. It's on Father's Day. It's in Father's Month. It's during the year. It's as you get brought up as a child. Like you have to continuously be progressing. You have to continuously be getting better. You have to. You know what? You have to be vigilant. As fathers, you have to be vigilant. There's a saying in The Godfather where he said, women and children are allowed to be careless, but men, you are not, because it is a life and death situation. That is the protection that we're talking about. That is the responsibility of being a man. So yes, even on Father's Day, like I said, even though I wasn't too open to it because I didn't want to listen, even on Father's Day, we should be getting taught lessons. Fathers, you do this, you should do this to your sons, and you should continuously be giving lessons, giving teachings. You don't know how long you're going to be here. That's one part of legacy, is to be able to and this is once again one of the huge reasons why I do this content, why I do this, you know, community beacon, etc., is that my children can always go back and say, oh, That's what my father was on at that age. This is what he was thinking. This is what he stood upon. And then, hey, 10 years from now, I may change. And what they'll see is growth. Wow, he was adamant about this. But then when he got to, 50 years old, 60 years old, he saw that it was a different thing and he made the adjustment. Or they could point me back and say, Dad, you're not making the adjustment. Because we spoke about this on a show prior that we need to be just as open to them, given to them, given while as we give them criticism to also receive some type of I don't even call it criticism, constructive criticism. We'll call it constructive criticism, right? And be
Yeah.
just be able to be open to it, right? So go ahead, brother.
No, I mean that's it, man. That's it. I think that's powerful. Because the thing is, you made a great example, right? Even on Father's Day, fathers should be learning or teaching or both at the same time. Think about this, Mike. In 6 days, God made the heaven and the earth and all therein, right? Then on the seventh day, he took rest. And it's like, okay. But then we find out later on in the scriptures that the day of rest represents the Sabbath and that no man is supposed to work on the day of rest because it is in remembrance of what God did. And then I thought about it, like, so you mean to tell me that on the day that God took rest, he taught every other man a lesson that they needed to slow down from their labor? So even on the day of rest, we still should be offering an opportunity for somebody to learn something from us, or we should be gaining something to ourselves. And I don't think that this is just a father's thing. I think that's an every person thing.
I agree. I agree. Let them tell it. I agree, brother. Powerful situation. Even on the day of rest. Like I said, I thought I wasn't open to it at the time, but I'm working on it. I'm working on being more open to things when I'm so adamant about what my thought process is. And that's what I learned this month, man. There was so much. This month was such a powerful month. And I want to say I really gotten flow this month, maybe about 2 to 3 weeks ago, where when I call it flow is it's more so of not resisting. It's more so about being obedient to what season it is, right? So it's about being obedient to the season and not trying to truck on through it, push on through it. When it's a time for me to sit back and hear what's being told to me, and it's a very powerful thing. And so one of the biggest things is that, and it was interesting because I saw a sign today, so I got to bring it up now. Is in regards to the legacy talk that we're talking about, because I mean that's what it's about. It's about legacy, right? Let's talk about it. Is that as important as it is for us to make sure our future is standing on a better ground, or as the best ground the best ground that we can provide for them, it's also important to heal our past, because the legacy just doesn't start with us, no matter how much you may want to run from it. And here's the problem, is that oftentimes us as fathers, because we may not be in our children's lives as much as we ought to be, or as much as we can be or fight to be, we're making it easier for the legacy just to, it starts here. This is where it starts. The buck stops here. No, this is years and generations of trauma and things that are happening intentionally for this bond to be broken. So we have to go back and we have to heal that, because otherwise we will be doomed to repeat it. We will take our traumas and our emotional scars, and we will even if we're trying not to be. Here's that part of resistance. Even because if you're resisting something, you're putting focus on it, because you have to put focus on something in order to resist it, right? So it's easy for us. We need to get into the healing process of healing behind us, our fathers, our grandfathers, our great grandfathers. We need to have those conversations. It was interesting during this month. I had a chance to take a time out to do a family tree, and I did it on both sides. And I remember I got as far as my grandparents, knew on both sides, know both of their names. but I couldn't go into the fourth generation because I had no idea. Had no idea. And so I had a chance to see my father, and I said, well, do you know who your grandfather was? Who he had never met, but my uncle was around. My uncle had met him. So now I know that my great grandfather, his name was Charles. Right? Charles Seville. To me, that was huge. That was powerful just to know that person, be able to project into that past so that now it's written down. So we need to take the time to go back, heal, find out what's going on. Why do we have some of these thought processes the way that we do? Why did our parents have the thought process that they do? Because your parents are in the same situation. The more I get older, the more I know that things kind of stay the same. You never reach that point of adulthood. You know when you're younger, you're like, well, I hit this age, I'm gonna be, we thought it was like a transcendent thing. And you get to this age, you try to say, wait a minute, this is high school with bills. You know what I mean?
That's a powerful statement right there. Honestly, that's a real powerful statement. And I think that we kind of, going down the road of legacy and development, as far as us being fathers, you can absolutely become a father by simply having a child.
Biologically,
you can.
correct. Yeah.
Biologically, you're a father. However, in order for you to be to cause an impact inside of a child's life, an impact inside of a family's life, you're going to have to take the time to start to perfect your, like a job. You have to perfect your profession. You have to start working on your fatherhood and how you're going to be a father to those that are looking up to you for care, because it is like what Mike was saying. It is about your past, it is about your presence, and it is about your future. And all of these things have to be thought of, because here's the thing about it. No matter what you say or do, your children will be able to see who the real you is. So if you're hiding, you're being ingenuine in your own lifestyle, then they may pick up some things that you don't want them to pick up, right? They may pick up some attributes that you're trying to hide. But the thing is like, it's hard to hide everything all the time. There's a saying, you can fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. So if we're not going to be genuine, I call it staying high. You have to be honest, integrity-filled, genuine, and humble. If you're not going to be like that, then you could actually send something into your children that you may regret later on in life. And some of that stuff, I think we do pick that up from, our parents and from our grandparents. And the thing about it is, Mike, I think I mentioned this in one of the other shows, is like when I got to meet my father after 33 years, I got to meet him and we were walking together, and my wife and, mother-in-law, they were walking by, or a stepmother, they were walking behind us, and they started laughing and stuff. So, I'm inquisitive. I turn around, hey, what y'all laughing at? It's like, even though y'all hadn't been with each other for 33 years, you walk exactly alike.
Brother, I'm trying to, and that's a powerful thing. Like that's why I'm explaining. You said that you're an impact. You're making an impact when you're in their life. You're making an impact when you're not in their life. We had on one of the first shows, we had someone who came, Musina, who came in and started speaking about her father and how her father treated her was how she knew that a man needed to treat her. She took that lesson from it. How her father treated her mother was how she knew her husband needed to treat her. Right? That's the type of husband she was looking for. Now, if you're not in your child's life, whether it's a male or a female, now we have to start to figure it out. And with we figured it out back then, coming up as children. We looked at the other people who society told us was cool in our surroundings. We looked at them. We looked at the movie. So we got this masculinity. We supposed to be diehard. What's the guy's name? Bruce
Willis.
Bruce Willis on Die Hard. Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. Like that's how
Wesley
a man.
Snipes, you
Wesley,
know.
Wesley Snipes, Denzel Washington. That's how a man is supposed to be. People around the neighborhood who other people, looked up to or had looked like they had money or whatever. We started looking with them, and tell you what, whether you're a male or female, you're going to be seeking the love of an older in regards to just attention from what you think is void in your life. And so oftentimes the closest things too is what you kind of pay attention to. Music played a huge role on how we a lot of people came up as well. Because how we were all the way in the South and we were listening to NWA, the Bloods and the Crips in California, and you got people down here talking about their Bloods and their Crips. You know what I mean? And it just goes on and on. So it's important. I think it's important for you to be in your life because then at least it's intentional. Because and that's the word. You should be intentional. When you leave and you're not in the child's life, then it's unintentional. They come up unintentionally. You're giving unintentional lessons because you're not there to support it.
Yeah, children are not born with a purpose, right? They're not born with a purpose. They don't know how this world goes, what happens in this world. And somebody needs to be intentional inside of that life to help design a pathway for those children to grow. And I don't mean you need to put their feet in stocks and make them walk like they're in the chain gang. But I'm saying we have to be intentional. I call it, purpose. I call it an IRD. You have to be intentional, resolute, and determined. And that's how you have to be with children. When it comes down to parenting, you have to be intentional. And if you're not intentional, realize this: nature or nurture, one of them's going to take your child, swoop them up, kind of like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and they're going to teach that child some lessons, whether you like it or not. Whether that could be music, movies, friends, whatever. The neighborhood guy down the street. It could be the pastor. It could be the police officer. Something is going to grab hold of them and it's going to swoop them up if you don't do it yourself.
What's the verse? Bring up a child in the ways. Bring up a child.
Raise a child in the way to go, and when they're older,
they will not depart from
it. Yep.
There it is. There it is, people and brothers. Because this is Happy Father's Month. I know. Look at me. I'm putting my hand on my chest and my heart. I know it can be difficult. I know that there are obstacles. I know that you second guess yourself. I know that you get what they call it, gaslighted. You get told that it just should be that way. You got these people coming who you may at some point think had some great intentions of you. And you go a certain kind of way. Listen to me. Listen to Uncle Mike. Do what you got to do. Do what you think is take some time, pray on it, listen, and then act and move accordingly. Act and move accordingly. I think we kind of went right into it because this being a recap in those sentences. We went into legacy. We went into ethics. Did we get to morals? I think that was partly morals, what I just said right there.
Yeah. And it's definitely a part of morals, because like we were just mentioning, whether it's the hidden morals and values or it is the exposed and intentional moral setting, what we are putting into that child is exactly what they will have to fend themselves, to defend themselves, to raise themselves up in this world. If we aren't doing that, then we're being a disservice to our children. And I think that this may be difficult sometimes, especially for maybe like young parents. I definitely know of a lot of young parents, and it was hard to make certain decisions. It was hard to really grow up. And this can be a generational thing, like what you were talking about earlier, Mike. This could be a legacy, which something that most families would call it a curse. Our family is cursed. We always have the children at a young age. Nobody ever takes care of the children. Well, it starts with you. Starts with me. I had children at a young age. But the thing is, and just like you said, Mike, the impact of my father not being at my house, what it taught me was as soon as I have a child, I am going to be in that child's life. I'm so much into that child's life because I felt like I was abandoned. And there was a lot more to it than just that. You know, there was some breakup between mother and father and all that type of stuff. So I know it was, but it wasn't me. Like, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't
Oh
have
man.
any choice to come into this world. And sometimes as parents, you know, and I know I'm kind of drifting more towards
No,
parents,
no, no,
but
no. Get into it. Get it. Get it.
as parents, we have got to understand. Listen, if you're not ready to parent, then don't do things that grown folks do to have children. You know what I mean? At any point in time, whatever you're doing may not work. And if that ends up resulting in a child, you got to grow up. Period. You know?
You know, that you speak into something, and that was kind of what I was getting at. Let me tell you what I had to do, just to talk about my own experience. Was I had to differentiate, especially with my parents, in regards to being the child, in regards to understanding whatever situation they had going on. I had to differentiate that. So when I go and I have that conversation with my parents, this is a conversation I had with my father, is that, listen, I don't care. Like, what happened between you and that was between you. I'm a child. Even at this age, I can't tell you whether that was right or wrong. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the situation. I don't know. Honest, and I kind of don't want to hear about it. I will, because I've become mature enough to be able to listen to these conversations and not put a judgment on it, on anyone at the time. So if you feel as a father that you have to get something off your chest, then go ahead and get it off your chest. But we're going to get to the core of the story, that as a man, as a father, and ladies too, as a mother, but it's tough for me to speak to ladies because I'm not one, right? So let me keep it with the men. As men, as fathers, this situation occurred. It was a tough situation. And I know you're a man too. Your heart may be broken. You may not know what, you may be heartbroken. You may be this. That has nothing to do with the child. I'm telling you, maybe your parents ain't gonna get it, but I'm talking to you. But you need to heal the trauma with your parents. So what that is you need to love them. When you look at your parents, you need to look at them as children. So you love them the same. So when you look at your parents, because your parents are human just like you, they make mistakes, they've had heartbreaks, they've had that. So when I speak to, and my father here, but this is how I visualize it. I speak to my father as if he was a young man going through what he went through. So that way I can have compassion for him and empathy for him. However, when I come back to it, and me and him are having a man, now I'm a man to a man having a conversation, I'm explaining that has nothing to do with your children. You need to raise your children, you need to be in your children's lives, and you need to fight for your children. I know the government doesn't make it easy, but guess what? At times you have to humble yourself. As a man, let me tell you something, man. You gotta humble yourself. Because you can't, we spoke about this before, you can't change someone else. You only could change yourself. So when you change yourself and you're coming from a place of love and you understand that these people aren't open to it, then at that time there's no conversation to be had surrounding that. But the conversation can be had can come from a place of love and come from a place of humbleness. Okay, this person don't understand it, and as logical as we are as men, as we're saying, like, man, this just don't make sense. I know. Listen. I've had these conversations with myself. This just don't make sense. How can this person not understand something as simple as this child is involved? It's about the child. This just don't take it. Have a conversation with Joe about it. But then when you're talking to this other person who is more clouded by emotions and clouded by, you know, validation from other people of how things are supposed to look, and society is saying this is what it's supposed to be, and this and that and the third, so I have to do this and I have to do that, you're gonna have to bite the bullet, because guess what, you are the person with understanding, right? You are the person with understanding, so you have to come with it from that humble and that love portion, and do the best that you can. Bite the bullet, eat it, Look, don't be condescending about it. Do the best that you can with what you can have. Go in, like, once again, go and talk to somebody like Joel. Have that conversation, that logical thought process, thought out conversation, frustrated conversation, and get that from your coach, and so that he can show you a different vantage point from it. And then when you turn around and have that conversation with someone else, then it's a different conversation because you already had the logical conversation with your coach. Now you can have this conversation with this person. And like I said, how I had to frame it was, I'm looking at this person and I don't care how old they are, I look at them as a child. Because what we are doing, especially as fathers, especially in the culture, especially with as much trauma as we've had, we are speaking to people's pain. Because what happens is that person feels as if you're rejecting them, and they may have already been rejected by their father or a grandfather or a mother or whoever it is. Like, it's people. Look, Anna said it, generational trauma can change the new members of the family. It 1000%. But that's why the healing has to start with you. This whole legacy thing doesn't start with you, because you're just a piece of the pie. Right? The legacy was far way beyond your legacy. Go back to God, right? That we are children of God, of the Most High. So that's where the legacy starts. So the legacy doesn't start with you. Guess what can start with you? The healing can start with you. And that comes from love, because the way that you feel and this person gets upset with you, it's hard to do that when you're looking at a child. I think I had a conversation with Joel about it recently. When Paul is playing with me, like today he was playing with me. He's sick. He's a little sick. So he's playing with me. I'm just trying to get him to move because he was a little lethargic. And he's like pushing me down. And in his mind, and I'm just laughing at it because this is a baby pushing me down. And so I frame like that. Now I'm starting to understand I got to treat everybody like that, especially when you're speaking to people's pain, when people order to their insecurities or whatever it is. I'm looking at it and I say, wow, this is trauma here. Let me tread lightly around this. Okay, no problem. You got it. Okay, what were you saying? Oh, let me just listen. Let me be present in this conversation. It's a powerful thing, people. This is what I learned this month. This month it was brought up on me, and I'm so glad about it, because now that this was something that I had to learn in order for me to expand. Go ahead, brother. I don't want to hog the conversation.
Man, that was you were cutting it up, brother. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Really was, really is. In dealing with that legacy and dealing with that generational trauma, and really that healing starting with us. That's powerful. I would love to bring up this point, illuminate this little piece when it comes down to that, speaking to the whole mentor. He that is mentored ought to mentor, so that the process never ends. It becomes cyclic, that we're always mentoring someone else as we are being mentored, and in the family. Then that just creates, generational wisdom. That's what you end up with. Generational wisdom. This was passed down from my granddaddy. It worked for him, and it was passed down from his granddaddy and passed down from his granddaddy or whatever, and these things just continue to only blossom and they grow. Yeah. Until somebody comes up with something that is slightly more successful. And then you're like, my granddaddy taught, his son who taught his son who taught, and the thing is like, okay, but this is how we're going to do it now, because there's a different set of circumstances we've learned. And I think that that's powerful. It's speaking to when you hear something coming from your young person, from your child, or like you learn something from Paul. And so it augmented the way that you think. Your reality changes. And I love that, because, a lot of times we think about reality as reality, but I think actuality is much more powerful, right? Because this is what actually is going on. And actuality is not based off of my reality, because my reality is based off of my perception. I hope that didn't go over someone's head, but what I perceive is not always actually what is happening in the environment. And so when I start to think about this, it's like, okay, so I've got to learn a lot from, who came before me. but I've got to pass this on to he who comes after me. So that means that with me, starting with me, I've got to be able to develop myself, because I want my son to be the greatest son that he could ever possibly be. And it's a difficult thing for me because, I had 33 years of absence, not by choice, but I did.
Right.
I had 33 years of abstinence. And my mother did get remarried during the course of that time. And it was great to have this man come into my life and do all he could for me. But then there was a fallout where I was acting out, and him and I butt heads so greatly that nearly every good thing that he had done for me in my life up until that point was forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
This is a powerful thing, right? Because when it comes down to it, it's like, by him being a step away from me, stepfather, by him being a step away from me, when my parents divorced, there was no going back. It wasn't like he can just introduce himself
That's
in
a
and
rough
out of my
situation.
life, because
Yeah.
he was not biological.
Mm-hmm.
So every single thing that he may have taught me, all of a sudden as a child, I did a memory dump, because the only thing that I truly remember was this last occasion. And it's like, hey, you know what? Psh, you're out of here. To this day now, at this point in time, in the older me that's more refined, it's like, okay, I understand some things about what that man did, and he was awesome. He did some awesome things, because just like what you said earlier, Mike, is like having that compassion on my father and understanding that he gave that, or believing that he probably gave the very best that he could give with what he
Right.
had.
Mm-hmm.
And without us going backwards and looking into the timeline, my dad's dad, like if I never learned about that, my dad's dad could have been this type of individual, which impacted him, which caused him to act a certain way with me, which is now causing me to act a certain way of my child. So as I grow older, though I've learned all of these lessons from before, I don't have to carry every last one of them, especially if they are defeating.
It's a powerful thing, brother. That healing, that not being able to carry the because that's essentially, if you don't know it, what is it? If you don't know the past, you may be doomed to repeat it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what it is. So, and you just broke it down and you communicated it so eloquently. That's how you have to look at a lot of these people, especially if you're coming from this. If you're coming from this, yeah, shouts out to Anna. Not every lesson learned should be taught again. Amen.
Oh, that's a powerful one.
Right.
Wow.
Anna's on a
Wow.
roll. Guys, that's
powerful.
That's the healing process. It's not for us to get into what exactly happened and try to dissect it, because you can't. I think we did a video a while back that shows that our memory, this is a human memory. I can show you something within 5 seconds and it becomes so distorted. You can become so disillusioned by what happened. That's why I tried not to listen to a lot of these different stories that people have to say. Well, my mom said that my dad did this, and my mom said that your mom could possibly be disillusioned. I'm just saying. Mother got a memory, is human in memory just like we do. It's almost like the Al Bundy story. You going back and tell.
But that's that mother's reality. That's that
Right.
father's reality, and that's not actuality.
That's not the actuality. So it's better for you as the child. Don't get mixed up in the stories. Go back and look and say, listen, and come from a place of love. I believe you did the best that you could. I ain't saying it was right or wrong. Definitely things could have been better. I get it. How do we heal from this point on?
Yes. So let's do that, brother. Let's do it. Let's level this conversation up, right? Where do we go? Because obviously this is the hot topic for tonight, right? The hot topic is dealing with the stresses and the pains of the past, and I know that there had to have been some good things too. but where do we go? Like me and you and other people that are around our age, if you're in your 30s, or you're in your 40s and you're dealing with your children, where do you go right now with the children that you have? What can you do? How would you speak to that, brother?
I love it. I'm glad you asked. Let me button up my jacket for this one.
Button up the jacket, man. Button the jacket.
Let me button up the jacket. I had a moment this month, like I said, and so I don't know whether it was before. I can't recall. I can't recall the actuality of it. But what I did understand was, in order for the healing process to happen, or in order in us to move forward, so that it's the healing, the legacy didn't start with us, but the healing starts with us, is that we need to really examine and go back, and we need to start digging back into our history in regards to like where we came from, what's going on. I think for me, because there's a different, my parents are from Jamaica. And so I always say there's two places I can go and actually have a real vacation to me. One is Disney World, because it's like it's not even real. They've done such a great job with Disney World. Guys, I'm like a big kid. I'm in Disney World. I need to leave my wallet and my checkbooks at home because money doesn't become real. When I'm in Disney World, money isn't real. I'm just throwing out $100 here, $8 for water. Thank you, Mickey. I appreciate this $8 water quenching my thirst. So I have to leave my money at home, because if I bring whatever I bring, I'm more than likely gonna spend. You're gonna turn me upside down and inside out. That's when it's Disney World. That makes me feel like a kid. The nostalgia of it. The second place is when I go back to Jamaica. When I go back to Jamaica and I go back to my mother's house, and I can see, like, my mother came from it was a big, it had 2 rooms in it. It was, the kitchen is outside, the bath, there was an outhouse in the old house where she lived in. And when I was able to go back, and by that time it was like dilapidated because they had built a house in front of it. But I can go back and see where they slept on the floor, where I can see where she used to walk. I walked where she walked as a child when she went to school. You understand what I mean? Like, I went to, like, went to the church that she went to when she was a child. Going there makes my mother, so now this conversation that I'm having with my, with a grown mother, you know what I mean, and having compassion and empathy for when she makes mistakes makes all the difference. But it's not just that, it's also the consciousness where my grandfather grew up, where my grandfather was buried, where his father was buried. I'm almost thinking like a lot of us, and if you're from here, is to also make that trail to go back in time, to just follow your family history and teach that to your children. Even like I think the first trip out of the country for some of us, especially if we're African American, should be Africa. Going to the Western coast, going and seeing people who and say, "Whoa, that's why we dance like that." Whoa, that's where oh man, these people look just like, if they didn't open their mouth, I think I was back in America. You have to go back and retrace those steps, and if you can, and if you're able, you have to. If you can do it, if you take in, I think that's one of the first trips that, besides Jamaica, of course, with my sons, going to Africa with my sons and daughters. If I'm blessed to have daughters at the time, and having that trip, and just us bonding and seeing this thing for the first time. What happens is that a lot of us, and I'm talking about the African American community, it almost like it started with slavery. For a lot of people, like that's where the history, we get bogged down in that history, and when we think of the Africans and kings and queens, we're thinking of what Hollywood brings to us, that type of interpretation of it. But to have that, and then when we're going out of the country, we're going to England, we're going to London. But I think a bulk of that healing goes back with having that conversation. The healing starts with going and experiencing that history, that rich history of that you have, and then from that point on, moving forward and starting to break those chains. That's a little bit of what I thought. I know. Time is of the essence, though.
Yeah. That's all right.
What about you, brother? What's some of the things that you intend on intentionally doing to heal and continue the legacy?
So I believe that, I believe that it starts with me. first things first is healing myself, right? Learning whatever it takes for me to be healed. I definitely agree with that statement. If that means that I need to go down a trip down history, which I have done, I think that is important. It was a very important stage in my life. It was so important that I got on a plane and flew, to various locations and visited the grave site of my ancestors and learned of the stories of them. So that was extremely impactful for me. But then after that, it was like, just learning the lessons from the family and being able to just kind of like chew that up and digest that and understanding this was my history. But from that point on, it was all about developing and building my own history, my own memories, because that helped me in a way that there's a void of not knowing who I am and where I came from. Like on one side of my family, there was actually slaves on both sides of my family, on both sides, slaves in Washington and slaves over there in Mississippi. So there was on both sides. I found that out. I also found out that on one side, that my great however many back grandfathers, that his wife was snatched away by a slave owner and took her to a whole nother state, and he escaped slavery, swam the Mississippi River, found her on the other side and got with her, and then begged or asked the slave owner to go and purchase him from the other slave owner so that he could be with his wife. That was powerful, and maybe that's a part of where the tenacity is developed inside of me, where I have this, I'll never quit type of mentality, but then on today's front, it's all about developing these pillars inside of my children. It's about passing on to them my compassionate nature, my empathetic nature. And even more so as I go through phases of realization, phases of actuality, phases of transcendence into this liberty that I'm in, to pass on all the good that I possibly can do, to give my children a better opportunity at being more successful than I am. I need to give them every single lesson and give it to them as raw as they can take it in the mindset that they are in, So I have books with some of my flaws and my failures in them, prepared, ready for my children. We have this show where I offer up testimonies of things that I have failed in. It's not just for the community abroad, it's for my own family as well, because I want my children to learn from the lessons of my failure from a point of view different from me just sitting down and telling them. One day they'll be able to come. One day my children, they're going to go online and they're going to see some of the things that I've talked about, and they're going to be like, oh, that's why dad did what he did. And it's not going to be because I sat them down and I made them listen to another story and another story. This is what I would say, Mike, especially for those that are parents and that have unity with the spouse. Learn the history. And I wanted to bring this up earlier. Learn the history of your spouse, because you have the opportunity to be able to speak up for your spouse, to be able to tell the background story that many times we don't tell. Fathers will clam up and children will run out of the room, slam a door, show disrespect. And nobody will tell the story of why dad made that type of decision. Wives, you have an opportunity to go and say, hey, listen, son, listen, daughter, let me tell you something about your dad, because I know he won't say it. And I'm not saying that this should play out that way. But if this is what's happening, you got that opportunity to say your dad grew up a specific type of way. They may not understand it right away, but he acts in accordance because he loves you, because he desires to see the best for you. And men, you got this opportunity to do the same thing for the women, for your wives. I think that that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Let me put this out there too, just in a short moment. Women, love your husbands. Respect your husbands, because a lot of times the respect is really what a husband truly wants. And men, love your wives. Make them feel like the queen that they are. Communicate often and frequently with one another, because when your communication dies, so will your relationship. Make the time to communicate with them. And I'm saying this in developing a legacy for your children. If you all are like oil and water, that's what your kids are drinking. Because your kids are drinking the words that come from your mouths. And if your lifestyle and your relationship is toxic, you're giving your children pollution to drink. You're giving your children pollution to eat. You got to first come together. That's powerful. So come together. Just like the song, come together right now over your children, over yourself. Don't live such a life that is destitute to pain and sorrow. You want to be happy? Communicate. Like Mike, like you said months ago, when we were talking about groundworks, over communicate. Make it hard to get it wrong. Communicate so much that you just can't get it wrong. Don't communicate till you get it right. Communicate so much that you can't get it wrong, that you cannot be mistaken with what is being interpreted. And that is what I'm passing on to my children. That's what I'm passing on. So when my little boy gets upset with me and he goes to the other room and I look at him, I'm like, he's upset and I was joking, but he took it the other way. I come to him, I'm like, hey, I see the way you took that. I offended you. I might have been joking, but he's offended. I apologize for that, because I'm not apologizing for my joke.
It was a good joke.
To me, it was.
Right.
But because it hurt our relationship, the relationship is more important than my ego. If this is going to help us to mend this thing like that, let's mend.
Here's and you just, man, everything you said is so much. you expounded on so much stuff. Here's the thing, and this would be make for a great show. Is the art and science of communication, because just in that example, what you said and your intent, which is often what we often think is communication. We say, well, my intention when I said this was, was good. You know what I mean? It was not meant to injure. However, that communication is not only what you said and what you intended, is how the other person received it. So if the other person received it in a different way, then now there's a time to talk about, like you mentioned, to make amends, to humble yourself, to not get strung out by your ego by saying, and Lord knows I said it before, like, that's not what I meant. But he's telling you, this is what I heard. Powerful, and I know we're definitely not going to get to be able to do that on this show. But a tip you could do is clarification statements. A clarification statement is powerful. Well, brother, what did you mean by that? When you said, what did you mean? When you said, did you mean this? This is what I heard. repeat what they said, approve it, and then let them answer to see if that's exactly what they meant, or let them get a chance to clarify themselves. And then you can come on. That's communication. But be careful about what you say and what your intents are. What is it? What's the saying? The road to hell is paved with good intention. It's
Yeah.
paved with good intentions. So man, brother, man, I love it. I'm loving this month. I don't even think we got to everything that we wanted to get to. I know responsibilities was going to be a huge part of the show. We couldn't fit it all in, but this is just an ongoing thing. And as we continue, it's Happy Father's Month. We definitely we try to pack in as much as possible, but just as fathers, just as men, just as we continue to go through society, it's ingrained in us. So it's not just going to be on this show, it's going to be on throughout the show of how we can become better fathers, better men, just continue to progress and get better. So that's my take on it. You look like you had something, brother.
100%. I wanted to end it with that is our responsibility. That's our responsibility. In summary, to be intentional, to intentionally raise our children. Be intentional. Do it because you meant to do it. Raise your children because you mean to raise your children. Put the effort in because you mean to produce a child that can be successful, a child that is not that has the ability to weather the storm. Do it because you desire for your child to be an overcomer. Do it because you desire for your child to be emotionally stable. Do it because you want your child to have a sound mind. Do it because you want your child to be a good husband, because you want your child to be a good father, because you want your child to be a good mother. Do it because you mean to. Father.
Amen. Amen. Guys, I'm done.
So am I.
I love you guys. I have nothing else to say. Go ahead and close it out, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, you know what? It's time for us to close it out. The real estate king and the business Michael, he went on, he gave the word. I'm done. That means cut it off. All right. So we here at the Community Beacon, we are so glad that you all have joined in and participated in this conversation about fathers and their Father's Day month. Happy Father's Month. All right. So it's time for us to close out. And we just want you all to know that this thing is all about liberty, and the things, the lessons that we've learned and the discussions that we share with everybody else. It is all there for each and every last one of us to gain a more freer mindset where we should be able to reach our highest potential and excel. So please don't forget to tune in next week, next month, because the topic of next month is coming of age, and we are prepared. The next week's topic is going to be specifically physical versus mental freedom. We want to get into that thing. We want to get into it. So please come on and join in with us. Don't forget to like it, love it, subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when we're coming on. As for now, that's Michaeldseville, your real estate king. I'm Joel Simmons, the motivatorpreneur, saying good night. We love you and God bless. Peace.